What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the Parrot Press. Today's video is all about the MLS. We're going to take a deep dive position by position, talking about some of the best players in the league, potentially some of the bargains, some of the new signings that some of the clubs have made as well. And we are going to start with the goalkeepers. So let's get straight into it. If we sort by L40, because that's how I like to look at this page when I'm talking about player rankings. I think the best player, I mean, it says it there, right? Top of the list is Andre Blake. With what Philadelphia done last year, I think that he's going to be hard to beat. But a player who's not appearing on this list because he wasn't minted last year was Petrovic for New England. I think they are the two top goalkeepers in the league. I think Petrovic will be very close to the sale price. I'm talking about Res when I'm looking at this, but I suppose it relates to limited as well. Petrovic is a very, very good goalkeeper and had a really good end of season last year for the New England Revolution, and I expect him to do well again this year. The problem being is that he's already said in the past that he wouldn't mind going back to Europe or leaving for Europe quite soon. So just keep an eye on that. But I do expect him to be their number one, at least for the start of the season. And as I said, he will be battling Andre Blake for that top spot, I believe. I'm not going to pick out every single player in here, but if I see a name that I've got some either information on or just an opinion on, I'm going to go through that. So Steve Clark, I think, is a really good budget version, budget option, not version. Around about, I haven't got, let's show the floor price. Let's get that in there as well. So yeah, for 0.34, he's probably one of your best budget options. Maybe sitting aside Stephen Fry as well. So Steve Clark should definitely be the number one at Houston, unless they sign a goalkeeper from now until the start of the season. But he played pretty well last year, you know, an L40 of 50. You know, you can tell that he's a good player, right? So we've got Stephen Fry in there as well. Now, there is some talk that he's potentially losing his position to Cleveland. His number two is a little bit younger. Now, Stephen Fry has got his contract. It does finish at the end of next season. So I think that it's more than likely going to be his last season. And if Seattle don't have a great run or something like that, maybe they'll look at introducing Cleveland into the first team a little bit more often than they did last year. But I do suspect that Fry is going to be the number one still for sure. And then just bridging that gap in between, Eli Room, he's definitely somebody that I'm looking at picking up as my second goalkeeper. So I have Andre Blake because I have him stacked with that Philly defense. But I do like Eli Room. Columbus have got a new coach now for this season, and I think he's a better coach. And I do think that they're going to have a really, really strong season. They're more than likely going to go to three at the back with the two wing backs. So whether you five defend or three going forward, depending how you look at it. But Eula Room for half an ETH, I think he's a really, really good goalkeeper. And in that same sort of bracket, you've got all of these goalkeepers. Stuva here, he is the number one at Austin. They do have Champions League as well, so there might be an extra utility for him from some of the midweek games. Sean Johnson, we don't know what's going on with him still. It's looking likely that he's going to Toronto, but there's still a possibility that he re-signs at New York. I think he's already turned down, or I saw it on Twitter that he turned down a move to Anderlecht. So obviously he'll be moving from the America region to the Challenger Europe. So it's one to watch. You can see here that I've got him favorited in one of my watch lists because I am keeping an eye on what's going on. And I think that probably if we was having this conversation at the beginning of last season and we would have said, you know, who are the best two goalkeepers, you've got Andre Blake and Sean Johnson, and the price probably does reflect that from last season as well. But it just depends where he ends up. If he goes to Toronto, I don't see a defender there to stack him with, and I do like to stack a defender and a goalkeeper in pretty much all of my teams. Looking down here, I think Crepeau, well, we know that Crepeau broke his leg in the last game of the MLS last year, so he should be back with about 4 to 5 weeks into the season. And if you are happy to wait, again, I think that's a good price. You're looking at one of the best teams, or the best team in the MLS, according to obviously the trophies last year, and that's always a good look. And I think you've got Palacios as a stack there if he does stay, and also Aaron Long, which we'll talk about as well. You've got the Dallas goalkeeper in there. Personally, I would steer clear. However, there is obviously a good reason to pick him up is because of his age, but I would steer clear of him. Joe Willis, I have Walker Zimmerman. So again, this is why he's favourited, is because I'm just monitoring his price, and maybe that would be the right pickup for me personally. But you do have to take into consideration he had a bad run last year, and he did lose his spot for a couple of games, but then he had a really, really strong finish. I mean, you can tell there by his L5 of 61 and his L15 of 52. And probably if I was to sort this by L15, he might be the strongest in there. And then the other guy that I've got favorited in there is Hazel as well. I do think that Vancouver are going to have a really strong season. I kind of don't know why. I mean, they finished strong. But for some reason, with the MLS, it's always like there's one or two teams that break out each year out of nowhere. They could have had the worst. I mean, Cincinnati's one, right? A couple of years ago, they were rock bottom. All of a sudden, they was one of the highest teams in terms of goals scored, and obviously finished high up in their region as well. So I just feel as though Vancouver might be that team this year. Could be totally wrong. A quick comment on some of these. I wouldn't be looking personally to pick up any of these players. Probably the best goalkeepers amongst these is St. Clair, but I don't trust the defence there. And Galicia as well, who has now committed, I believe, to a new contract. I would do a, if you are looking at picking him up, make sure that you confirm that. But Galicia is a very, very good goalkeeper, and Orlando seem to be making some moves in the transfer market. So he again should be one to pick up. But all of these guys is around about that half an ETH. So yeah, top tier you're looking at Petrovic once he's minted, and Blake. Budget option, I'd go with your Steve Clark or your Stephen Fry, and then that kind of mid region you've got a pick of a bunch really. Room, Stuver's still a good price. And still a good goalkeeper as well with the utility. Crepeau, Willis in there. Hassel has got under 23 utility. So yeah, there's quite a pick in there. So hopefully some of those comments helped you guys. Moving on to defenders, and let's sort by L40 again so we can start talking about some of these guys. Kai Wagner, I owned him for the majority of last season, so there was talk of him leaving to Europe, and if you do follow MLS, you've probably heard many rumours. However, Leeds have signed a left-back, and that was the team that he was predominantly linked to. And I don't think that there's another team now that are interested. And obviously, if Leeds have signed a left back, they probably don't want Wagner. So he might stay in the MLS next year. And if he does, that stack with Blake is probably going to be the most dominant one again, because Wagner will stay on set pieces, and obviously Philly are really strong at the back. So again, one to keep an eye on. Let me just put the floor price on there at 0.325. You could probably have the best defender in the MLS if he stays, but you've just got that risk. Does he go back to Germany? Does another team come in for him? Challenger Europe team come in as well? It's that risk. What you have got is, I'll stay on Philly because here you've got Glesnes and Jack Elliott as well. Now, I own Jack Elliott, and that is my stack, Elliott and Elliott and Andre Blake. So I'm happy with that. I would probably move to Wagner to potentially, but I'm happy with Elliott. And then we've got Glesnes in there as well, who is a strong candidate. Now Elliott is more of a goal threat. If you look at it by his decisives, he's slightly higher on decisive than Glesnes, but Glesnes does pop up with a free kick every now and again as well. So any of those three, I think if they all stay, then they're more than capable of that defensive stack. You've got Nathan in there for San Jose Earthquakes. A decent stack with JT Martin Kelsey, but I believe that San Jose might have just signed a new goalkeeper to compete with JT a little bit, but JT's got a really good age. I know we didn't talk about him for the goalkeeper as well, but Nathan is an AA monster, and he pops up at the other side of the the other end of the pitch as well when it comes to scoring goals. As you can tell there by his L5, he's decisive there, is 50 points. And he's a really, really solid option, to be honest. Point two, he's capable of those 100 peaks. It depends whether you can sit there and watch San Jose. They're not the most exciting team, in my honest opinion. They kind of a little bit leaky at the back, but when they do get it right, going forward and defensively, just like any team really, they are very good in terms of scoring points. We've got Palacios in there as well for LAFC, and again that's the player that I was talking about, stacking with Krapal. There is links with him moving to Europe, so be careful on that. Make sure that you do your research as to what you're buying into. But a very solid player. Again, they wouldn't be on this as high up on this list in terms of L40 if they wasn't. Capable of hundreds, absolutely. John Tolkien in there. I think his price is like that. He scores well, but also is that under 23 utility. And again, there is still talk with him going to Europe, as probably there will be for all of these top players in the MLS. So again, do your research. For Alan Franco, I believe, has left. Claudio Bravo, he started last season on fire the first 5 or 6 games and then kind of died off a little bit. But he does get forward as a left back. Decent option, but for the price, I think that you could get a bit better, in my opinion. We've got Yeimar in there. I own a Yeimar, and he is up on the market at the moment. That's just because I'm trying to make moves elsewhere in Europe, because I've kind of got my MLS team sorted, which I will share at the end. But an AA monster, and if Seattle hasn't got Champions League this year, they had it last year, which really interrupted their play. Or the beginning of their league, and then they couldn't catch up towards the end of the league cycle. But Yeimar is an AA monster. He just needs to come in with a decisive, every 4 or 5 games. One of the best in the MLS, to be honest with you, especially if they play that free at the back. With their wing backs, if he plays on that right side of centre back, he does have the license to do a little bit more. But a great player at a really good age, probably top of his game at the moment. I know as I've said, I'm not pumping him because I'm more than happy of keeping him if I don't get the right price for him. Now, Kamal Miller, be careful. There's links that he's moving away, and Montreal seem to be selling quite a few players. So be careful there, but a decent-ish player. Andrew Brody is one that I'm keeping an eye on as well, because when I was searching mid-part of last season, I was looking at some of the data as to who kind of competed with Wagner, whether I could get somebody a bit cheaper that but takes some of the sets, plays at that full-back position, whips crosses in. And Andrew Brody, in terms of data, was actually quite close to him. But he obviously wasn't hitting the amount of decisives that Wagner was. But he does get forward. He can play right back. He can play left back. It's just depending, again, whether you can sit there and watch Real Salt Lake. Because some of the times, I shouldn't really do this, but sometimes I make a decision as to how that team plays, and because I like watching them whilst having the players in a lineup as well. So yeah, Real Salt Lake wasn't really one that I enjoyed watching last year, but Andrew Brody, he's got a defender and a midfielder card, so be careful. I think that he's a decent pickup if you can get his. Well, maybe I'm saying too much, but Super Air price doesn't look too bad. If you went triple that, you're looking at 0.4. Yeah, it's not bad. Brooks Lennon, another one that I picked up on the off season, so about 2 or 3 months ago, and then sold him for a quick profit because I decided to move into Europe. But this is another guy that could be very good. He suffered a few injuries last year, and I knew this was going to take a while, so bear with me, guys. And this is why I'm not bringing their SO5 scores up. But if we take a look here, there's a lot of green when he plays. Now, this is the injury that I'm talking about. He was out for about 7 games. But when he plays, he can play right back. He's playing striker there. He can play left back, right mid. Plays all over the place. Right attacking mid in there I saw as well. But if Atlanta start firing, and now they're getting rid of Jose Martinez as well, maybe he does take that striker role if they don't sign anybody. But just from an overall sort of standpoint, if we look at this, I think they're really, really good scores for a decent price. And again, it's another person. He signed a long-term contract as well now until 2025. He's just another guy that I'd like to have in the roster as well. Now, as I said, I'm not going to talk about all of these, but are there any that scream out to me? Brandon Byers not a bad choice. Capable of 100, plays right back. Definitely going to start, in my opinion. Who else in here? Walker Zimmerman. I am holding. He, out of the last 3 years, he's won Defender of the Year twice. So if he can just get back to what his form was, then it's absolutely a steal at 0.2, because probably the start of last season, he might have went up all the way to like 0.6, 0.7, which is crazy. And then I'll talk about Gressel now, just because he's not going to appear on the midfielders list. And who else is in here that I wanted to mention? It was Andrew Gutman, very good player. Again, a very attacking fullback at Atlanta, could do some amazing things. Would be a really good super rare because he does have spikes, and he'd be a really good rare as well, obviously, if he does have those spikes. And there was just one more that I wanted to talk about on this list, which is so far down. I don't know if I've missed him already, but that's Aaron Long, who has moved to LAFC. Very good move for him, I think. I think that New York Red Bull, I mean, I haven't really watched too much of them, but from the guys that I was talking to in Discord and some of the other MLS experts on Twitter that I was following, New York Red Bulls used to like or liked to play long balls, and LAFC don't really do that. So I think his AA is going to massively increase, and I think he's around about 0.06 at the moment. He's got a good age at 0.0. Sorry, that's his price. He's got a good age. I think he's 30. It's just whether there's going to be some rotation there, because Chiellini's still there, I believe, and a couple of other centre-backs as well. So just be careful with him. But I do think that he comes in and just their number one centre-back, to be quite honest with you. But again, do your own research and make up your own minds. Now, this is a kind of a good link here, because he's got a defender card and midfielder cards. And we're talking about Vancouver again. We're talking about Gressel. We look at some of his scores. So he come from DC United in an unexpected trade, and it was quite funny seeing on Twitter when he was just like, "Oh, I'm leaving," and he didn't really know about it. But he's got Champions League football, and I think that they're going to have a good year. He's got a midfielder card and a defender card, and for that price, I might look at picking him up, to be honest with you. He plays kind of all over the park again. He can play further forward, he can play right back, right wing back, but he looks like he's been playing more as a right mid for Vancouver. But as I said, they had a really strong end this run here against three really top sides. Surprised that they didn't beat Minnesota there, but maybe they was just well, the season was over, I suppose. But they started to play a bit better, and I just like him. Not trying to pump him because I haven't picked him up yet. I just like him as an option. Moving on then, let's look at some of the midfielders. With here, we obviously have the top tiers, and let's sort by L40 again. Carlos Hill, obviously an insane choice. If you've got unlimited ETH, he's probably the one to go for. He's probably the king of the MLS, as many people talk about him. At 1.7 though, I just don't know if I'm going to pay that. Even if I did have, well, I suppose if you did have unlimited ETH, yeah, maybe you would. But he's more suited to All-Star, in my opinion. But if you play him in America, then yeah, you're probably going to captain him every week. You've got Mukhtar in there. I think that he would be better as a forward card. He's obviously very decisive. Heavy but very decisive, capable at the same time as well. Can he do it for the third season on the trot? Probably. especially if he gets a decent partner at Nashville. But if they do sign a top forward, then maybe he shares some of those decisives. I don't know, but he's a good option. Evander, now if Carlos Hill is the king, Evander has got all of the attributes to be the prince. He's got good AA game. You can see there by his L40, 17. I know it's in a different league. He's just signed to Portland, and Portland are making some strides, some really good signings, and they've got a really good core, in my opinion. I think he takes some of their sets, certainly. For 1.5 ETH, I mean, you can tell there by his last public sale was 0.68, but I don't normally like picking somebody up who's coming from a different league because you don't know what they're going to be like. But Evander just looks like an absolute baller, so I would keep an eye on him. Thiago Almeida for that price, he's probably more than likely going to be moving to Europe. I don't know when, whether that's this year, next year, or the year after, or whatever. But I would kind of steer clear, just from my personal opinion, steer clear of him. Ladero is just getting older. But he's still very capable, decent AA as well for Seattle. This is the guy that I've got, Zelarayan. I think that Columbus are in for a really good year. He is a key focal point for their team. All the play kind of goes through him. He's got a really good partner in Hernandez up top as well. Again, not trying to pump him, but just justifying why I have him. I picked him up for cheaper than this, by about 0.2 or something like that, cheaper. And I really like him because he can just do it all. He can score, he can assist, he's got good AA, he plays 90 minutes. I really like Zelarayan as well. It come out this morning that Torres was or is in discussions with Arsenal. If he stays at Orlando, he's a really good player, and I think they've got Champions League as well, so that extra utility. Luciano Acosta, I've sold him. Sold Acosta. Because again, I need that ETH to go and pick up a decent midfielder in Challenger Europe to get my side stronger there. If I didn't need to do that, I wouldn't have sold him. His AA game is pretty appalling. However, with Brenner and Vasquez in front of them, Barrial as well, I think that Cincinnati could have another really good season if they all stay there. Now, Brenner, there was more talk this morning about a move to Udinese, so be careful on that one as well. But if that doesn't come off, their attacking lineup, their attacking front 4 or 5 or whatever is really strong. And I do like Acosta. He takes most of their sets, split a little bit in terms of corners with Barrial, but he's a good player, very good player. Pereira, I would stay clear of just because. Well, I had him, I sold him. I didn't like the way that he moved around the pitch. He kind of always went down, got injured. Even if you look at his minutes, he looks like he plays 90 minutes most of the time. But it's just really annoying to watch. He goes down and then your heart's in your mouth thinking, oh, is he injured? Is he out? Then he might be out for a game. He comes back and then you haven't played him in the lineup because you think he's out longer and all of that. And he just annoys me. So that's why I've left him out. Scrolling down, Ryan Gould, again, going back to that Vancouver team, I think that he's in for a really good season. He's finished the season so strong. An L5 of 81 is crazy. Even an L15 of 68 is mad as well. But he's got good AAs and pops up with goals left, right and centre as well. Ricky Puig, last year he'd come to LA Galaxy and he just blew everybody out the water in terms of his technical ability coming from Barcelona. He's just too good for the league. He really is too good for the league. It just depends how long he's going to stick around. I don't know. Ranuso, I've mentioned him in the last couple of videos, and I know this video is really long, so hopefully the people that are still here are finding this useful. Just my thoughts thrown at you. Reynoso still going through some legal issues, but if he comes through that and is allowed to play again, the league let him in, etc. And 0.3 is absolute still. As I said, I paid 0.6 for him. I traded him out a couple of videos back, but that is one to watch for sure. Asario is apparently now okay, mental health wise and health wise. He is capable of high 80s. Like there's no tomorrow. he has also got Insigne and Bernardeschi and all of those guys around him. So I expect him to have a really good season. And then coming down here, can Gazdag do it again? His AA is appalling. So you're banking on him having all them decisives like he did last year. I'm not too sure on that. And is there anybody else in here that I'd like to kind of give a shout out to? As I said, the Gressel midfielder card interests me a little bit. Marcelo Moreno, be careful, he's moved. If it's not already updated on here. And then there's not really anybody else that I would shout about. Maybe Leon Flack. If Wagner leaves, Leon Flack could take some of their set pieces, which means a few more decisive scores. His AA is not great, but as an under 23 is good utility. And there we go. There's Barrial as well. If you look at his L15 of 61, yeah, he's a decent player, really decent player. This is probably the last guy that I'll talk about. Eric Tommy for what is it? Sporting Kansas City, I think. Taking over some of the set pieces. And he come from a German. You can see there. What's that? Stuttgart, maybe a team like that. But look at these performances when he kind of come in and started. He's got really good AA. He's taken some of their sets now as well. They had a really strong finish, and along with Vancouver, I think the Sporting Kansas City come back into the fold this year as well. Just my personal opinion. And you can see here. Oh, all right, it's Stuttgart. But basically, when he started coming into the team, in their last, eight games or so, 2 draws, 2 losses, and 5, 6 wins. So it must be more than 8, obviously. But really, really good player by the looks of it. And with Russell and again another guy who I picked up and coming back into the fold, and them just becoming a little bit stronger with him in the middle of the park. Who knows for next year? But a good, decent player. I just wouldn't buy him yet because I want to see how it at least starts. If he starts well and gets a couple of 80s, I think his price, excuse me, I think his price rockets a little bit more. But there you go. Thoughts on midfielders. Take it or leave it. Talking about forwards, then the last point, the last position. Before we just look at my team and who I've got. So Insigne is obviously the best. Really, really good player. As we know, he's still in his prime as well at the age of 31. So again, if price is if ETH is not an issue, then yeah, go ahead and pick him up. Underneath that, so we sorted by L40, we haven't we? Yeah. Druisi, he's got a bit of AA about him. He takes all of their sets. He's such a key player for Austin. There was talk about him going to the Premier League, to Leeds, and a couple of other players, teams across Europe as well. So just do your research on him. I think at one point when all of that transfer rumours broke, he actually went down to around about 0.5. You can see now he's back at 0.88, and he's more than likely to stay by the price. That's what it's telling me. Diego Rubio, again, I sold him. I don't see him having the season that he did. I don't see these scores being replicated, especially if he moves up higher into the pitch now that Zardes has gone. I don't see him doing that, and that's kind of why I sold him. But I probably his price is going to rocket in the next 6 weeks as people move over and look at some of these charts and think, oh, who are the best forwards that I need to get in? And Diego Rubio is obviously high up on that list. I'm just not a massive fan. Carlos Vela, obviously great when he plays because he gets injured a lot. This guy I expect a lot from. You can see I'm watching him as well. Luis Orejo. His AA for a forward is really, really strong. Look at his L15, it's 15 there. Okay. I don't know who Atlanta are going to replace, who they're going to bring in to replace Joseph Martinez, because he's likely to go to Inter Miami. But if they get a decent partner, this guy can do it all. You can tell by his price there. I think probably about, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, he might have been around about 0.4. You can see now these floor prices already over half an ETH as well. But I expect a really good season from him. Hernandez can still do things. For 0.2, who takes their penalties. He's got Ricky Puig behind him. Yeah, he can still do absolute bits. Savarino is another one like Orejo. He's got really good AA. He takes most of their set pieces as well. But coming back to that Real Salt Lake point that I made before, I just didn't really enjoy watching them. But he's on that mid-price range. You know, if we're talking about Insigne and who was at the top, Druisi at the top. You've got Orejo, you've got Savarino, you've got Velasco, and you've got Magno now as well. He's come down in price, but they're all kind of around there. Velasco I actually won last season and sold on again to make different moves, but he's a really good player in terms of AA. He was injured for a lot of last season, but when he come back for the last sort of 5 games, he was on fire and he looked really, really good and enjoyable watch. And then his partner in crime, kind of up top, is Jesus Ferreira. And again, at this point last year, Ferreira's price was probably around about an ETH because of that under 23 utility, but he has been linked now to move abroad. So again, do your own research on that one, but obviously a really good player. I think he looked a little bit out of his depth when he played at the World Cup, which might, he's probably confident in his own ability, but I was going to say which might make his mind up in terms of what does he actually leave and going to play into Europe. I don't know. But a couple of other players that I'm going to shout out. Magno is looking to play the number 9 at New York City, so that could be a good thing, or maybe not in terms of AA, but he's full of confidence and he's looking to do that. Johnny Russell, that's the other guy that I picked him up because he shares some of the sets, and as I said, I think the Sporting Kansas City will have a good season. If he can get back to what he was the season before last, then absolute still at that price. I actually paid more for him than that. Vazquez is really decisive heavy. He's got no AA game whatsoever. But again, if Brenner and Acosta stay, there's no reason why those decisives can't carry on. And the only other couple of players that I'd mention here is Rui Diaz. Again, at that price, it's really good if he can stay fit. That's a big if, because Seattle on paper are probably one of the best in the league, but he must stay fit. Hernandez there is that pairing with Zelarayan, and I might look to do that maybe in the mid-season, but definitely not paying that price at the moment, just because you know what I'm trying to do. What might be a budget option is I've already sold this guy, so it's not like I'm trying to pump him up to sell him on. It's Cueto. Now he has midfield cards and forward cards, but with Kai Kamara going, I mean Cueto was their kind of main man anyway. But if he can stay fit from Montreal, and they've got Vita, however you say his name, is the young guy who's coming through, that could be a really good partnership up top. So if you're looking for a cheap forward, maybe Cueto is the one to go for. And then the other guy that I've got is Buenega, because he plays for the best team from last year. In terms of trophies, I mean, I think the best team was the Union, in my opinion, but he certainly had a really strong spell with them when he come over from the French league as well. You can tell that he's got that quality, and I expect a good season from him. And apart from that, would I talk about any of these guys? Joseph Martinez obviously is an MLS legend. If he comes back into form for Inter Miami when he signs, that could be amazing for them. And I wouldn't really talk about Duran. He's just moved to Aston Villa, so he could get loaned out. I don't see him taking a starting spot at Villa yet. But there's Pedro Vita, as I was talking about. He had a really strong L5 when he come into the team last year. I'm just scrolling down anybody else that I can see here that I kind of know about or have an opinion on. Not really, guys. So this is a really long video. I appreciate you guys staying. If you've stayed this long, please hit that like button and subscribe button if you are new. But what I'm going to show you is my America MLS lineup. So I've got Andre Blake in goal, as I've said earlier. I think he's really worth the price in my opinion. But if you're going to stack him with the Philly defender, I mean, they broke records last year in terms of clean sheets and stuff like that. So he's there. And Jack Elliott's in there as well. Yeimar is in there. As I said, I mean, that's my price there at the 0.3. But I'm more than happy to keep him around, especially with the 10.5 bonus. And then I've got Walker Zimmerman. as a backup. As a backup of the backup, but obviously more than capable of starting for me. And eventually, probably what I want to try and do is that when we come into, I don't know, around about April or late March, is pick up an MLS goalkeeper so that I'm not forced into selling these guys if they're just sitting around doing nothing, and they don't break into that team. Because I'm always going to play Elliott and Blake, to be honest, unless I change Elliott for Wagner and he stays. But pick up another goalkeeper and all of a sudden I've got, again, another option of some of the best defenders in the league. And then we've got Matthew Reel, who is likely to take that left-back spot if Wagner leaves. And that's a big if. As I said earlier, he's likely to stay by the sounds of it at the moment. Tinnerholm here, he was just an impulse buy. I heard that he was going back home to, what is it, Norway? I think that he gets some sort of Champions League games as well. But I picked him up because there was talk of him staying in the MLS and going somewhere else for the sake of like 40 quid. Just picked him up and maybe he comes useful in the future. From a midfielder point of view, I've only got Zelarayan because I sold Acosta this morning to finance some of the stuff that I want to do for Challenger Europe. But I am looking to pick up that midfielder Gressel card to give me a bit of depth, and then who knows, hopefully I can win some rewards in the next 6-7 weeks, maybe pick up somebody else. And then from a forwards point of view, I've got Buanga in there and I've got Johnny Russell as well. So really two really good forwards capable of really high scores as well, takes some of their set pieces, and I'm really happy with that. So all in all, one goalkeeper, 3 or 4 defenders, 1 midfielder and a couple of forwards. As I said, I'm looking to get that midfielder in there, and then I should have a really strong lineup for America when it starts at the end of February 26th, I believe it is. But guys, if you've lasted this long, as I said, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Hopefully some of my opinions, some of my thoughts have maybe helped you guys out, of little bits of information that I've dropped there. But yeah, I wanted to take a deep dive and just talk about my MLS gallery and some of the players to look out for this year. There's still a lot, what was I going to try and say? There's still a long time left for the transfer market, and we've got 6 weeks until the season starts. So there are some moves that are bound to happen. Some trades that we just come out of the blue, or some transfers, some guys from Europe coming over and getting stuck into the MLS as well. So there might be some better options that come out in the next few weeks, and I'm excited for it. I'm excited for the season, absolutely excited for the MLS to get going again. As I said, by the summer I want 2 lineups again, an All-Star and an America team as well. And I think that I've got a good core there. So yeah, if you like the video, hit that like button. If you want to see some more, hit that subscribe button. And as always, guys, I will see you in the future. Thanks for watching.